All right. Welcome everyone again to our presentation. As you can see on the screen, we will be muted and not on camera just to minimize distractions, but maximize bandwidth. And just lately, we've had a little bit of some WebEx technical issues today. So if you get any glitches, that is where that is coming from. But to help mitigate the problems, we'll just keep our cameras off. We will have a Q&A at the end of the presentation, but if you have questions that you want to ask during any particular slide, I will do my best to answer those questions at that particular time. And this webinar is being recorded because we do have folks who have registered, but they are not able to attend. So we want to make sure that we get the information out to all of our registries as soon as we can. And then afterwards, there will be a follow-up email with a survey and a copy of the recording. So if there is material here you want to go back and revisit, then you'll have a chance to be able to do that. So we are in our Career Quest month of May. We're closing it down a little bit coming in the next few days, but also May is our Military Awareness Month. And so we're doing presentations that also highlight our military veterans and military veteran students, as well as the month of May for Career Quest. Today, we're going to talk about military and veteran interpersonal skills in a general way that I have titled, Tell Me About Yourself. We know that when we go to interviews, that's probably one of the first questions. So tell me about yourself. Where this presentation is coming from is from all of the different students and alumni that I have had appointments with who have always shared with me that as a military member, we didn't have to interview, right? We just raised our hand and said the oath. So being able to communicate in different ways, in different styles, in different situations might not be part of basic training, right? You didn't do this during boot camp necessarily. It kind of came through whenever you interacted with a superior officer or, a teammate or someone that might be, under you, so to speak. But nothing formal. So hopefully some of this information will be able to highlight some of the ways why we as veterans may find it difficult to communicate in certain ways. That could even come across on your resume. And I get this a lot from my veteran students who will say at the top of that resume where it's about your profile or your summary of qualifications, I often say that is like your 30-second commercial, but I get that response to say, sir, I don't have a commercial. I don't know how to do that. We never had to do that during my time. So here we are. And hopefully there'll be some clues here and tips to help start the wheels rolling with that subject. This is simply, we put before every presentation, if you need to get up and walk around, or you need to walk out and get a drink of water, or if you're at work and you are being, you're being called out for a minute out of your office, or whatever the reason is, go ahead, take your time, take what you need, because again, this is being recorded. You'll be able to go back and watch this on your own and be able to help. But we want you to be able to pay attention to whatever your mental needs are, your bodily needs, just your needs in general. So I hope some takeaways from this presentation will be some tips to excel at communicating in your life, your family life, your friends' life, civilian environments, whatever the situation may call. There may be some tips here and some tools to help in better communication. And with that being said, that can be also leading into the ability to strengthen those relationships, both your personal and your professional relationships in a career setting. But either way, we want this to help build confidence in group conversations, If you're going to a mixer, if you're going to just a party with your spouse or neighborhood, whatever the conversation scenarios are, these tips I hope can build some confidence to enter into those conversations. Now, this is a question I often get from others that I interact with, even in my personal life. Why is it that veterans kind of shy away from talking about themselves? So let's look at some common scenarios that might lead into this. First could be maybe PTSD, maybe traumatic brain injury. If there's something there that is blocking the ability to go from your brain to your mouth, that could be an issue or a sign of just some communication skills that are going on. Difficulty transitioning to civilian life or to civilian culture. As you know, as military personnel and reservists, we went through a specific training process. We belong to a specific culture that had its very different rules than being out in the world today. Social isolation. And what I mean by that is, again, it's one of those things to say, I'm not very comfortable in this. I have to be here, but doesn't mean I have to always be in center stage. So I may step back a little bit behind the curtain, so to speak. Social isolation. Maybe difficult expressing emotions. This is not unique to the military or the veteran population. This could be folks who just, they don't have that compulsion to express their feelings all the time. And maybe in some situations, it's not appropriate to do that. Protecting our loved ones. I often hear this from other veterans to say, what I experienced, if I was in any kind of military arena, a fighting arena, I didn't see some great things. And so I'm going to save you from having to understand or know what I saw. So I'm protecting my family from that kind of experience. And, you probably really couldn't understand anyway because you weren't there. So let's change the subject. And again, on that same theme, I left it. I still have it in my dreams. I still have it in my thoughts, in my life, but the realities of war, I'm trying to leave behind on the battlefield. And then that OPSEC kind of effect, if you will. So that operational security, it's a need to know situation and you don't need to know. So I'm not going to talk about it. This happens quite a lot, and it can happen in the background. It doesn't always have to be a conscious thing to follow. It's just sort of automatic that can affect how we communicate or not communicate. Now, there are typically four different styles of communication that I put up on here. I know this is kind of wordy. I'm not necessarily going to read it out to you, but you can go back to see it. But we communicate maybe in a passive way. Those characteristics are kind of avoidance of expressing opinions or needs that's there. But the drawback could be maybe we don't get our needs met, or there's a buildup of resentment, or even we begin to build maybe low self-esteem if we're in that passive communication style. On the other side is the aggressive communication style, forceful, demanding expressions, often at the expense of others. Drawbacks can be hostility, damaging relationships, lead to higher turnover in careers. And just as an interesting, hopefully humorous, but I thought I would share a video of an example of an aggressive communication style.
Good morning, handsome.
Morning, Mom.
It's me.
Yes, it is, and you're so pretty in the morning.
Your mom and I made you breakfast.
Oh, wow. So you guys are getting along?
Yeah, I guess. We're very different people, Howard, so communication's a little tricky.
Does he like the pancakes?
He didn't try them yet!
Is there any butter?
It's butter-flavored syrup.
So, what's the word?
He wants butter!
It's butter-flavored syrup.
I just told him that!
I don't need any butter.
If you want butter, I'll get you butter.
Well, I guess I'll cut these by myself.
So you might think that was a little aggressive. So anyway, there is then the passive aggressive communication, indirect expression of anger or frustration, avoiding direct conflict or confrontation, leads to confusion, mistrust, unresolved conflicts, and that's passive aggressive. Oh, hey, let's watch this video.
And my progressive rep was super helpful.
Tom Hayes is passive-progressive.
The way Kevin says he always has to help you.
Tom doesn't have progressive, so he takes it out on those who do.
If you switch, you can save hundreds.
Oh, that's great. You could buy more of that cologne we all love.
Huh. Progressive called me back about the claim I filed.
Support when you need it. I wonder what that's like, huh?
In my office. Now, Tom!
Don't be passive-progressive.
This is bad, right?
Switch to get good coverage and savings for yourself.
Feel free to watch more videos at work.
So passive aggressive. We may know all of these communication styles. Where we're leading to in hopefully in the way we communicate is maybe that assertive communication. That doesn't mean angry. It's that more clear, direct, respectful expression of opinions, because you want to be able to promote mutual respect. Maybe it helps in problem solving, shows that you're building those better relationships. Now, you may relate to this a little bit, or you have your own experience. I wanted to jot down some military communication styles, or how we have communicated. More direct, right? More concise, get to the point, focus on the task or the mission. There's a hierarchical structure. So there's a structure of how we communicate, not always in the best way, but there is a hierarchical structure that we follow. A use of jargons, acronyms, abbreviations. It's more of a formal tone in most circumstances. Emphasis on precision and accuracy, right? But on the civilian style, it's a little different, a little more indirect, more conversational, focus on the relationships, building those relationships, less formal structure, more of an emphasis on diplomacy or empathy, a more informal tone, tolerance for ambiguity. So if it's an ambiguous kind of structure, there's a tolerance for that. We just kind of let it go, or maybe ask clarifying questions. But in the military side, we want precision and accuracy. On the civilian side, we want the focus perhaps on collaboration. This is it's the Mirabane model that's called there, and I've got the source at the bottom if you wanted to look this up yourself. I thought this was very interesting. When most people communicate, only 7% of that communication is through words or the content of those words. 38% could be from voice or utterances or sounds responding to the other person's communicating. But more than 55% is communicated through body language and visuals. Just imagine rolling your eyes, looking down, having your arms folded, things of that sort. That speaks volumes more than sometimes our words. So what are some benefits as we grow to be better communicators? Well, in our personal life, it's obviously going to affect our social life. We want to improve those social connections and interactions, reduce that social isolation, enhance more self-awareness, which will improve our mental health, we hope in some respect. And then it can also help in conflict resolution, especially in our jobs and our work environment when that's necessary. On our professional life, it's going to help with that career advancement. Now, when you're doing a job search, you're probably seeing on those job descriptions that one of the soft skills that are required are professional communication skills, both written and verbal. So this is where that career advancement stage will pop in. And that's obviously going to affect your teamwork, collaboration between departments, perhaps between you and your supervisor, but most definitely between you and the person next to you. Strong communication skills are always part of leadership skills. It can come to job satisfaction. Again, it helps with the problem solving strategies. It's always going to be part of a workplace culture, even in the IT industry. You're going into cybersecurity. My folks that I work with, who are also software developers, even work remotely. You still have to interact with your boss and with your teammates to some extent. So communication skills are going to be pretty important to grasp and to grow in. And then that resiliency and adaptability in those circumstances. And we've all had to learn that in the military as well. Here's another element that taps into something that is hitting especially a lot of university career centers with job searching, especially with going through the whole job search process, is what we call social emotional learning. It doesn't mean, we're going to be, weak or tree huggers or anything like that. But it does mean that we want to, if we start at the top at the 1 o'clock position, more self-aware, recognizing that our emotions and our values can be our strengths and can help us when we're facing any particular challenges. Then down in that, around that 4 o'clock position, responsible decision makers. If we're more in touch with ourselves, then we can make and also in touch with that situational awareness, right? Those things around us, we can make better ethical choices, more constructive choices, both about our personal reactions as well as the social behavior when we're in those groups that are around us. Relationship skills, we want to have those positive. It's not always going to happen, right? We're always going to have conflict. But if we have if we're better in tune with what's going on inside us, then that ability to have a more positive relationship, working in teams and dealing with those conflicts can come a little bit easier. And then, as I said a moment ago, that the external social awareness that's around us is going to help us to understand and be empathetic to those other people in our lives. And what could be most challenging, depending on our circumstances and what we bring to the table, could be self-management, managing our emotions, our behaviors to really achieve the goals that we want. So again, we want to enhance our ability for self-awareness. We want to be approachable, especially if we're working toward a leadership role. And we want to be respectful to feedback. And that can really be not the first place I'm going to run to. I don't know if in your previous work environments, if you had annual reviews. Obviously, in the military, we had those fit reps, right? Those fitness reports to where we got some feedback. A little different in the work environment today in the civilian world. But if we receive that feedback and we're respectful of that and receptive, that can also help us in that ability to have more responsible decision making, have that self-awareness. What can I do better? Or if it's positive and you got some great feedback on who you are, your interactions with your teammates, your communication skills, what can I do to make it even better than I had today? When I would give feedback on something that I thought needed to be improved, I would say, well, Brandon, you did this really well. I like the way you approached this particular situation. Here's something that might make this even a little better way to enhance it. So it's acknowledging where the good things are and also giving tips or feedback to where it could be better. But to do that, we have to have that sense of self-awareness, our own emotions, that ability to empathize with that other person, and to self-manage, even when things, it's like, I don't see anything good here. I don't know if this could get any better. But instead of lashing out and barking orders at somebody else, you know, have that ability to help them thrive and to do better. Now, some practical communication skills. Obviously, what people are looking at are people to be active listeners. And we touched base, I was getting to that a little bit with the body language. So being an active listener means eye contact, paying attention to that person, not your cell phone, body language. We talked about folding your arms. We talked about looking down. One of my colleagues always talks about one of her challenges are facial expressions. Her face doesn't lie. If something happened or somebody said something, somehow her face is going to reveal what she's feeling. Doesn't mean you have to be a robot, but to be aware of how we're communicating in those nonverbal communication styles. When we're talking to somebody and they're explaining something or they're giving some, they're giving a story of their life or what's happening in their life, mirroring back can be a really powerful tool to use. So that would be, oh, Ian, I heard you say blah, 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 blah. Was that correct? Oh, I find that really interesting. Okay. So mirroring back so they know you're listening, you're picking up on those keywords. There is a saying that is, if you want others to be interested in you, then you be interested in them. And part of that is these lists of active listening skills, mirroring back, asking questions, not interrupting, but when you perceive a pause in the speech or the talk of that communication, and there's maybe a question there. Oh, you're from Texas. Where in Texas are you from? Oh, I was born in Dallas. Didn't we have some storms last night? What part of Texas do you like the best? So just those questions to really get the conversation going, but always be respectful during that feedback. Showing empathy, clear, concise communication, but having that emotional intelligence is another real key tool that we can have for ourselves to engage those conversations. So how do we do this? We've talked a lot about some things that might sound academic and some practical stuff, but where you can find ways to now go and do some self-study and to engage in ways to enhance could be to seek that feedback from people you trust, might start with your family. So that could be something to start with. Attend workshops or even courses that are online. Doesn't mean you have to go get a different degree, but there are all kinds of things, TED Talks, LinkedIn Learning, Coursera, all kinds of things on enhancing communication skills. Practice those active listening. When you get the video after our presentation today, or you do your own self-study on active listening skills, put them to practice. Have a way to put this into a practical, your life, real world scenario. And always observe positive interactions. So if there's somebody on the news that you think has some really great interpersonal skills or communication skills. They articulate well, mimic them, so to speak, mirror what is it that makes them good? What is it that you like about now you want to keep it positive. So you don't want anything that's going to be overbearing or negative on that side. So that's going to help in those relationship building and conflict resolution experiences. Display an open body language. And what I mean by that is try not to cross your arms. It might be comfortable, but if you're at a desk, crossing your arms, crossing your ankles, for example, that just kind of can send out the message that you're closed. You're closing, you're protecting yourself. Sometimes it's hard to open your arms and just kind of sit there. One of the ancient signals of friendship is a handshake. Now think about that. So one of the historical elements of that is when you go to shake someone's hand, you're telling them, I'm not armed. I don't have a sword. I don't have a gun. I don't have a knife yet. You're shaking their hand and you're greeting them on the same level. So improving those emotional intelligence, that SEL that we talked about earlier, that social emotional learning, those can be Googled. Those can look up on other sites and platforms to help in your learning of those elements. And then come out of behind the curtain, as we talked about earlier. Try to, in a self-improvement way, force yourself out of that social isolation and enter into those conversations. Prioritize a way to get to know other people when it's comfortable, when it's safe for you to do that. Be mindful of your reactions in all circumstances. We may feel it, but it doesn't mean we have to act on it. Avoid generalizations and assumptions. All these people are this way. All those people, whatever, so those generalizations, that's not always the same. Be mindful of your own tone of voice for that. We know that we're getting agitated, I think, is when we start speaking fast and our tone goes up, or we start wanting to yell, or I'm talking like this. So be mindful. If you catch yourself, take a moment, breathe again, bring your tone down. If you need to recuse yourself and exit the conversation, have a polite excuse. Oh, excuse me, I need to go and get a drink. Or it's like, oh, wait a minute, I saw a friend of mine, I'm going to go say hi. Whatever it is, if you need to remove yourself from that situation so that you're not accelerating reactions. And then we always need to be patient with ourselves and with others. Now, there was a question here. Let's see real quick. Let's say I'm listening to someone and think of a question. How do I continue to listen without only thinking of asking my question? That's a great point. And you're right, Ian. And that's actually a really good point of when we're entering into those conversations, we have to mentally turn off that ability to say, I'm listening to you, but I'm really formulating a question or formulating a way I want to respond. So I'm not really listening to you. It can't always be easy. It can be a little difficult for that. You may even say, if we're in a conversation, I may even say, oh, wait, Ian, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have a question. I think it's really a good question for what you just said. So you may have to pump the brakes for a minute to stop that conversation so you could ask that question. Or if you think you can wait to the end of the conversation, you can do that. I think there are strategic ways to kind of break into that. If you're noticing that the conversation or the thing that the person's saying is really emotionally charged, that could be they're talking about almost anything, then you might want to wait and not break into it, because that might break the the emotion, so to speak. So you're gonna have to pick and choose when is the most appropriate time to do that, or wait till after that person speaks. I hope that helps, if that makes any sense. All right. So some next steps. I mentioned a few of these uh, earlier. What do I do? What can I do tomorrow? And you might put a goal for yourself. If any of these touched you, your situation, it's something to say, yeah, I need to really kind of do more of that. When are you going to do that? Can you give yourself a week to maybe do some research on that particular, whatever it is? Well, if you do, there could be, again, online workshops. Eventbrite sometimes have like gatherings from like Toastmasters. And I've known people who have joined a student chapter of Toastmasters to be able to have better communication skills. Volunteering at church. And anyway, if you want to be a greeter at church, sometimes it could be a reader during the service. Anything to get those juices flowing could be helpful. Some community colleges have ad hoc, just one-off kinds of workshops and classes on different topics, and communication skills may be one of those. YouTube it, Coursera. You all have free access to LinkedIn Learning. You can log into LinkedIn Learning using your WGU credentials and then look to see if there are any workshops. I mentioned TED Talks earlier. That could be a good way to find some of those as well. Now, speaking of talking, I talked a lot. So I'm going to take a break, and I'm going to open up just the chat line. We're all on mute, but you can use the chat to ask any questions. If you have any questions or any examples from your own life, if you're willing to share maybe your transition from the military to the civilian, what did you find challenging in the communication sphere or interaction skills, and how did you overcome that? You don't have to share, but if that's something that sparks an idea, please go for it. If you need to hop off, you're perfectly welcome to do that. Here is our contact information. You can call and leave a voicemail if you wanted to make an appointment. You can go straight to our website to make an appointment, or look around at other tools and resources. We have drop-in hours that you can register for on Handshake. But either way, I hope you got something out of this. If you're still with us at this point, I want to thank you for joining. Ian, thank you for your question. And again, I will be sending out a video with the follow-up email. As soon as I get that, I'll send it out to everyone who attended. All right, excellent. Thank you, Ian, very much for everything you're doing. Good luck on your reserve time. And if you need us for career support, please let us know. We'll be here to help.